So, good morning, everyone. Let us start from where we left in the class. I think we are meeting after 3 weeks. So, we have started unit number 2 in the class, that is the different types of classes in C. The basic part is that in the C language, people they have developed structure in order to save the different types of data, and whatever program they write was consisting of the data members like declaration of variable and then the functions. These functions were used to be uh, declared in the main itself. The complete program has to be written in the main. So the problem length increases when the application software requires a lot of functionalities, and because of which what people have done, they have come up with the idea to develop the classes. So we have seen that the class is composed of different parameters. Generally, it is consisting of data members and the member functions. The data members are included in the class itself. And second, the member function declaration is also done in the class itself. So now, when I declare it, the complete concept is known as encapsulation. I am encapsulating the data member as well as the member function in the class. Now, whether the data members or the member function can be accessed within the class or outside the class, the priority can be decided. The priority can be decided based on whether I want to keep the content public, private, or protected. So, for that purpose, the C++ also comes with access specifiers. These keywords will decide whether the data member and the member functions can be made public, private, or protected. So whenever I go for public, it means that the data member and the member functions can be accessed outside the class. However, whenever I declare the private and protected as a access specifiers for the data members, these data member and the member functions can be accessed only within the class, with exceptional in some cases where I can use a friend function in order to take the control area of the protected data member or the protected member function within the class. So far we have also seen the general declaration of the program in the C language. It look like this. I can declare the data member private variable as a private. It means that it can be only accessed within the class, protected also within the class. However, if I'm using inheritance, it can be also accessed outside the class with the condition that the second class from which it is accessed is a derived class of the first class. Second, I can also declare the data member and the member function as a public. In that case, it can be also accessed outside the class. These definitions are going to remain within the class only. This part will be used or can be called outside the class. So when I declare the access specifiers, for example, let us take a very good example of a class consisting of student. Okay, let us try to understand the demonstration, what happens when I execute this particular program. If you observe this program, it is consisting of a class student consisting of data members which are declared as private, consisting of again the two data members, roll number and marks, then the data member string with a variable name as a public, and again the member function set details. consisting of two parameters. One of them is integer r and second one is float m. Both of them are publicly available. Again, the variable r is assigned to the private data member roll number. So this can be accessed through this function, and whatever value of m we get, it will be assigned to the private data member marks. Another data member or the member function, here it is declared integer get roll number with no parameters inside it, and the definition of the member function is return roll number. So it is going to return roll number to the calling function get roll number. You need to remember that the member functions are also known as methods. Okay, so initially whenever this program is executed, it is divided into three phases. The first phase is when the compiler executes the code. What it does, it checks the various access specifiers and allocates a memory layout for this particular class. It checks that whatever data members are there, these data members will require memory for usage, and it creates a default layout depending on the type of data member that is provided. So for example, here roll number. So when it sees in the class there are two data members, one is roll number, it allocates 4 bytes of memory for it. Okay. Similar for the marks, it allocates 4 byte of memory to it, and it creates a default layout, and these two are private. And a third data member string, that is name, and since the name can take different types of space, since it depends on the user, so it doesn't allocate the fixed memory size, but it will be initialized during the runtime. So it creates a default layout depending on the data members that are declared, and allocates a particular amount of memory that can be used in order to allocate the value to these data members. So default layout consisting of roll number, marks as a private member, and name as a string. Okay, after that the phase 1 is over. In the phase number 2, it is going to execute the code. Okay, in which what it is going to do, it is going to execute the main. So it will directly jump to the main function, where in the first line it sees that an object is created. So object with the name s. So as soon as it sees that class student is having the first object s, what it does, it provides the main memory for this object over this stack. Location of memory, correct. For that it allocates certain memory over the stack for the particular object. After that, what it is going to do is that once the memory is allocated to this current instance of the object, what it is going to do is that it is automatically execute a function which is known as a constructor function. Okay, so by default, once the object is created, the compiler looks for the constructor function that is known as the default construction return for this particular object. So in this case, there is no default constructor return. So what it will do, it will execute the next line. So in the next line, object is tagged with the attribute name, and it is having the value John. So what it is going to do, it is going to check for the attribute name whether it is private or public, and it is going to replace this s with the name of the class. So it will become student dot name, and whatever name is there, so this is publicly available, it will jump from here and it will replace it with the name John. So now in the memory, here you are going to get the instance of the object populated with name is equal to John. Okay, and these two values will still be not mapped. After that, similarly, if I want to connect the object with the attribute roll number, if I type s dot roll number is equal to 101, it will replace this s with the student and try to assign the value 101 to the data member, that is roll number. Since it is declared private, it cannot access it. In that case, the compiler will print a error that you are trying to access the private member inside the class. So that is not practically possible. It cannot be directly called outside the class. So it will return a error. Similarly, if you tag the object with the data member marks, which is again private, again it is going to return the error. After that, if I tag the object with the member function set details with the two parameters 101 and 95, in this case what it is going to do, it will look for the function first, that is set details. So it will go here, it is written in the public area. The very first thing that it is going to do is going to pass these two parameters with it is going to pass these two parameters with the integer r and the second parameter with float m. So now in the memory you are going to have the two parameter r and float m assigned with the value 101 and float m. After that, this r is assigned to the data member, that is roll number. Again it is private, so r will be assigned to this roll number indirectly. So I can access now the private data member by assigning the value indirectly to the roll number. So roll number will now become 101 in memory. Similarly, m will be assigned to marks. So marks will become 95.5. Okay, we already have name is equal to John now in the memory. So now for the current instance of this object s, you are going to have in the memory roll number assigned with the value 101. After that, marks 95.5, and after that name is equal to John. So once it is assigned, if I again write the command which is not written here, s dot, if I write the string s dot get roll number, so it is going to print the value roll number. If I write cout is equal to roll number, it is going to display on the console the value that is equal to 101. Okay, so once it is done, the last line will be executed in the main, that is return 0. What this return 0 will do, the return 0 will erase all the member functions or the data member which are being assigned with the values temporary in the memory. So automatically it will run a function which is known as destructor. Whatever memory is allocated for the current object instance, it will delete it and free the memory for another programs. Okay, So execution is very simple. The program has to be divided into three phases. In the first phase, the compiler checks for the class, check for the data member, and allocates a memory layout in order to store the values for the data members. So integer and float 4 bytes, and for string, since it is uninitialized, the length is not allocated to it, it will change dynamically. In the second phase, it is going to run the main. Whenever it runs the main function, it first checks for the object. Whenever it sees the object of the class, it creates a temporary memory or the memory for storing the current instance of the class S. After that, it will execute the linking of the object with the attributes. So it will assign the values according to the lines or the strings that are written for execution of the code. Once all the assignments and execution is done, the return 0 will be used in order to free the memory which is allocated for this particular current instance of the object. So this is how you are going to have the usage of class with the access specifier. What you observe is that a very important and the key concept which is known as encapsulation. If you observe it correctly, we see that the data members roll number and marks cannot be called outside the class, but if we want to allocate them certain value, this can be done through the member function which is declared inside the class. So the limits of this particular data member remains hidden to the end user, and this particular thing is known as encapsulation. Similarly, there are many examples you can check that are given in the slide. Okay, so we'll not take that part now. I think it is more than enough to understand the execution of the class, and there are certain properties that you need to understand, how the private is declared and how the public is declared. Most important thing, whenever you are going to pass the value to the member function inside the class, the proper way of setting the value to the parameters of the member function is like this. Okay, so if I want to pass roll number is equal to 10 for a current instance of the object, so if S1 is the current instance or the object for which I want to pass the value roll number, it can be passed to the member function set roll number like this. If I type it s1 dot roll is equal to 10, it is the wrong approach. The program is not going to be executed. So we have already seen this part in the class. Okay, so you can study it. A comparison table is also provided to you. What you can do with the access specifiers, if they are public, protected and private. So we have also seen these access modifiers in the class. What is static, what is constant, mutable, volatile, signed, unsigned. Okay, this part already we have taken in the class. So the part that we have not taken is constructors and destructors. So what are these constructors? So we have seen in the very first example that we have taken now, there are three phases for execution of the code. The first phase, in which the compiler creates a memory layout for the data members, whatever are declared in the class. It assumes that and it assumes that it will require certain memory for the storage and allocates to it. In the second phase, the main is executed, in which whenever the object is created, the temporary memory is allocated for this object in the memory stack. A memory stack is the free area of the memory where a temporary space is allocated for the current instance of the object. So generally what happens many times when you allocate or create an object, and if you are not initializing it with certain value, it picks the value from the memory which is known as the garbage value. Okay, and many times it may happen that while calling these data members, the data members will come up with the garbage value, and because of which you are not going to get the execution of the function correct. So in C++, what people have done, they have developed a member function which is known as a constructor member function or a constructor method, which is automatically executed when you are going to declare or create an object. Once the object is created, automatically, implicitly, the construction function is going to run. Okay, and it will allocate certain value to the data members. These values will be used in order to initialize the values to the data member. If we don't do it, in that case, what will happen? The data members will pick up the garbage value, the values that are available in the memory, and when we use it, there are good chances that these are going to have impact on your execution of the code. This will not be the original value, but instead of that, the garbage value will be taken from the memory. So generally, the constructor is declared as a function, and this function can be with parameters or without parameters. Most important thing, it comes with the same name as that of the class. It does not return any value. Another important thing is that it is automatically invoked whenever the object is created. Okay. Most important thing also, it can be also overloaded. So there are different types of constructor. The first type of constructor is known as default constructor. Second one, the parameterized constructor. The third one, copy constructor. And the fourth one, constructor with default arguments. We can also set the value to the parameters as the default. In that case, it will be known as the constructor with the default argument. Let us take one example. So in this example, what we have done, we have declared the class student. Same example consisting of the data members declared as private, roll number and name, and a member function student with no parameters. So this is a constructor. This constructor is consisting of same name as that of the class. So the name of the class is student. So constructor also comes with the name student, and the default values assigned to the parameters. Roll number is assigned with 0, name is assigned with unknown, and it also prints default constructor called if it is executed. Okay, and another member function, that is display, which is going to display the name and the roll number. After that, the main function, in which the object s1 is created and it is stacked with the member function display. So when this program is executed, the phase 1 compiler, what it will do, it will assign the default memory layout to the member functions. Okay, my mistake. Data members. So here it sees that there is a declaration of data member present in the class, the roll number. So it will allocate 4 bytes of memory, integer type, which is declared as private. Okay. Second, name and done, the 2 parameters. Okay. So it is uninitialized. So memory size is not fixed for it. After that, it sees that there is a declaration of constructor, and the constructor comes with the value roll number is equal to 0, name is equal to unknown. Okay. After that, in the phase number 2, it is going to execute the main. So it sees that in the main there is a class student with the object s1. As soon as it sees there is an object s1, it creates, allocates memory to this particular object or the current instance of this object s1. Okay, so this s1 is consisting of certain memory allocation now, which is blank. After that, it is going to automatically run for the default constructor. So you need to remember that as soon as the object is created, the compiler is going to automatically execute and look for the default constructor. So it will automatically jump from here to the default constructor student. After that, it will check for this object s1. It will check roll number is equal to 0. So it will allocate now the data members roll number value is equal to 0. Okay, the name is equal to unknown, and after that it will print default constructor is called, termination of this function. Okay, and then it will jump to the next line. So now in the memory layout you are having roll number is equal to 0, name is equal to unknown, and in the console you got the message default constructor called. After that it will execute the s1 dot display. Again it will replace s1 with the name of the class student dot display, which is declared in the public area. So from here it is going to run this particular member function, which outputs roll number, that is equal to roll number. So now the value of the roll number has become 0 as per the default constructor, and the name will be unknown. So it will print it, and after that you are going to run the return 0. Whenever the return 0 is executed, the all the parameters in the memory will be deleted. Okay, so it will return 0 value and the code is executed without any error. So why we are creating this default constructor, and what will happen if it is not created? Imagine a situation where the default constructor is not declared. In this case, what will happen? You can check that suppose this default constructor is not declared. So in that case, what will happen? During the phase 1, the compiler allocates the memory layout for the data members, that is roll number and the name, and they will be having 4 bytes of memory reserved for roll number and for name uninitialized. After that it will execute the main. In the main it will check there is a object s1, so it will allocate certain memory for this current instance of this object or for the parameters that are available. So since memory is not allocated, it will take some value from the memory, that is garbage value. So it may be any content that is available in the memory because of the previous execution or when the system is on. So for this current object, it is going to allocate something. Roll number is equal to some garbage value and name is equal to some garbage value, that is without constructor. Then it will go to s1 dot display. So again it is going to execute this member function in which you are going to get the print of the data member roll number and name. So it will print some garbage value and some garbage value that is assigned to this name. So what is happening in these two different scenarios, with and without constructor? If you don't use the constructor, what will happen? The data members that are declared inside the class are having good chances of assigning the garbage value. Garbage means anything, correct? And whenever you are going to use this variable in order to do some logic or develop some logic, your logic will fail. So it is always good idea, whenever you declare data members, you should use a default constructor in order to declare or initialize the values to these data members that are going to be used in the class. So we are also having another type of constructor which is known as the parameterized constructor. What we do in this constructor is that we try to pass the values in the constructor itself. So if you check this example, so same example I'm taking, okay? So student, but here what I have done, I have used the parameter declaration within the constructor function. So in the earlier case it was blank and roll number was assigned with 0 value, name was assigned with some value like that. So here a class is declared student consisting of private data members roll number, name, marks, then a constructor in which the parameters are declared integer r, string n and float m, and the definition of this constructor function that r is assigned to roll number, n is assigned to name and m is assigned to the marks. All of these are the private members. So indirectly I am accessing the private members which are present inside the class. After that, a display method or a function to displays the values for these private data members. After that, main. So we'll check the execution of this code, how this code is executed. So when the compiler execute this code in the phase 1, the compiler checks for the class declaration in which it sees that there are some data members and the member functions. So for the data members that are present, it is going to allocate a default memory layout. It will create a default memory layout. It will check that roll number will require certain value for storage. So it is integer. So it will allocate 4 bytes storage for this data member. String will remain uninitialized. Marks will be allocated 4 bytes for the storage of this data member. After that, it will jump to the main. In the phase 2, it will execute the main in which it will check that the student class is having the object s1. So s1 object with the parameters 101, Alice and 95.1. So it will execute by default once the object is created. Once the object is created, it is going to automatically execute it is automatically execute Okay, so once the object is created, it is automatically going to execute the constructor. So it will check for the constructor that is present in the class. So it will execute this constructor function consisting of parameter r, n and m. So it will assign the value to this integer r, string to this parameter, and 95.5 to the parameter float. So what will happen now? You are going to have the value r is equal to 101, string n is equal to Alice, and m is equal to 95.5. After that, what it will do? It will run the definition of the constructor function. It is going to assign r to the roll number, n to the name, and marks to the m to the marks. So in the memory layout now, the roll number will become 101, whatever memory layout has been assigned. So now roll number is going to become 101. Okay, name will be replaced with Alice, and marks will be replaced by float, which are the private data member. After that, it will display the message in the console, that is parameterized constructor called. After that, the function definition will terminate here and it will execute the next line, that is s1 dot display. So this object is tagged with the member function display. So again, it is going to jump from here to the member function display. So once it checks for the member function display, it is going to run the definition of the member function display, that is it prints in the console the roll number, the name and the marks, which are now updated in the memory. So it will print roll number is equal to 101, name is equal to Alice, and marks is equal to 95.5. Once it is done, it is terminated, and now you are going to get line number 25 execution, that is return 0. Now whatever memory layout has been assigned and is populated for the current instance S1, it will be deleted after the execution of the code. So one of the advantage of using the parameterized constructor is that we can directly assign the value in the constructor itself. We can have the temporary values assigned in terms of temporary variables, and these values can be again assigned to the data members which are declared private. So another type of constructor is there which is known as copy constructor. Sometimes it is required that whatever memory layout we create for the default constructor, it is required to have the copy of that, a duplicate memory layout. So if you are working on the code which requires that to validate the values of the variables that are present after updation, better to have the one copy with the default values. In that case, it is always a good idea to use the copy constructor. So initially, if I am having the roll number 101 and marks 95.5 for the object S1, if I can create a copy of it, I can store it into another object S2. And now if the values of the object S1 is modified, still a copy of S1 is already available with S2. So we call the type of constructor which is used to copy the values of the another object as a copy constructor. So let us take an example of this. So in this code, class student, same example. So a normal constructor with a parameter is declared, that is student integer r and string n to access the private member inside the class. Then a copy constructor in order to copy the values that are used in order to store the data members roll number and name, then a display function, and then a main. So let us try to understand how this code executes. In the phase 1, the compiler creates a memory layout for storing the two data member roll number and name. You need to remember default memory allocation for the roll number and float will be 4 bytes. Okay, for string it will remain uninitialized and will be dependent on the string that you are going to pass during the execution or during the passing the value during the code itself. So first part, it will allocate the memory layout, that is roll number with some 4 bytes result to store the value, and then name. Then it will check that there are two constructors declared. One is the parameterized constructor consisting of two parameters, roll number and name. Okay, and second, a copy constructor which is going to create the copy of this first constructor. So both of them start with the same class name, only thing is the declaration. So here, since I'm going to keep a copy of the first constructor, it has to be declared as constant, student and s. Okay, so whatever current instance of that object will be available, a copy of that will be called and stored in this second constructor with the name s dot roll number and s dot name assigned temporarily to the instance of the object roll number and name. So first part, the roll number assigned with 4 bytes, integer data type private, name uninitialized, the data type string private. Second phase, the main function will be executed. So when the compiler checks the main function, it is going to run the first line, the name of the class with the object s1. Once it checks the name object s1, what it is going to do, automatically it is going to execute the default constructor. So it will jump here and the default constructor will be passed with the parameter value 101 will be given to r and Bob will be given to n. Okay, so now the value of r is 101 and the value of n is Bob. Once it is done, what it is going to do, it is going to assign the value to the variables that are declared inside the class. So r will be given the value roll number and n will be given by the value name. So now you are going to get for the first object s1, roll number becomes 101 and name becomes Bob. Correct? So once it is done in the memory, now for the current instance of this object, roll number is 101 and name is Bob. So once it is done, it is going to execute the next line, that is student s2 dot s1. So it is going to copy whatever memory layout is available as it is to the second object s2 and a copy of the same will be created. So it is going to jump here it will check student and S. S is the current instance of the object, and the current instance of the object S is S1. So whatever values of the data members that are present for S1, that will be assigned to the data members that are declared in the copy constructor, and this will be copied here in the instance of the object S2, that will become roll number is equal to 101 and name is going to become Bob. Correct? You can also create the copy of S1 in another object by writing the string like this: student S3 is equal to S1. So it will also be used as a copy constructor. Whatever memory layout is assigned for the current instance of S1 will be copied to S3. Now when you use the member function display, what will happen? Whenever you write the display for the first object, the member function display will be executed. It is going to print the roll number and the name with reference to the object S1. So it is going to print 101, okay, and the name Bob. And when the second object function is executed, s2.display, again it is going to print the same value, okay. And once the return 0 is executed, any instance of the class data members will be deleted and you are going to get the memory free. So constructors also comes with the default arguments. Arguments means earlier we have seen that whatever constructors we have declared, these constructors are not initialized with certain values. However, it is also practically possible to initialize the parameters that are declared inside the constructor with the default arguments. So whenever I am going to execute the constructor, there are possibilities. Whatever object is created, it may come with a single value or it may pass multiple values of the parameters. Accordingly, the constructor will replace them during the execution. So let us take the example now. So here again the class rectangle consisting of two data member length and width, public access specifier consisting of the constructor function with the same class name rectangle, consisting of parameter length which is assigned with the value 1 and the w assigned with the value 1, and the definition of the member function L is assigned to the length which is a private member of the class, okay, and w assigned to the width again which is a private data member that is declared inside the class. It will print the line constructor called with L and W. So whatever default arguments we have passed, the constructor will be called. Then the data member function, that is integer area. So whatever area I am going to calculate with reference to these two arguments, the area will be in integer data type. After that, the close of definition here, and then we are having the main function consisting of 1, 2 and 3 objects that are created from this class. So when this program is executed, you are going to get first thing, the phase 1, the compiler will create the memory layout, okay, for length and width. So it is going to have the data variable length, 4 bytes memory assigned to it. Second, width, again 4 bytes of memory assigned to it. Okay, for both the data members, both of them are private. After that, it will see that there is a constructor function written in the code with default arguments consisting of certain values. Okay, and according to that, it will populate this layout. Again, it will check there is a member function. In the phase number 2, it will execute the main. It will see the first object R1. So it will automatically create certain memory for it. Okay. So R1 with certain memory allocation. Okay. For this current instance. After that, it will automatically run the default constructor. Once the object is created, we know that the very first member function that the main will execute is the default constructor. So it will run to the constructor function rectangle. Okay, here it will see that L is equal to 1 and W is equal to 1. Since this object doesn't have any parameters passed, default L will become 1 and W will become 1, and this 1 will be assigned to length and W will be assigned to width. So now length is going to become 1 in this case. Okay, and width is going to become 1. So this is for R1. Similarly, in the case of second line, you are going to get the second object R2. For this, you are passing the parameter 5. So remember that since only a single parameter is passed, again it is going to automatically execute this default constructor. So it will assume that the first parameter is replaced with 5. So L is going to become 5. W will remain as it is. Okay. And after that, the value of L will be assigned to length. So length is going to become 5 in this case. Okay. And W will remain 1 only. For the third object, length will become 5 and W will become 10. Finally, the first line cout R1 area. So R1 tagged with area. So it will jump to this area function. Okay. Here it will return the value length into width. So 1 into 1 will become 1. So it will display area is equal to 1. In the second case, R2 dot area. So 5 into 1, it will display 5. And third, 5 into 10, it will display 50. So when I write return 0, the default destructor will be called and whatever memory layout is assigned for these data members will be deleted after the execution of the code. So it will free the memory that is allocated for this constructor. Most important thing in the C++ is that the constructors can be also overloaded. What do you understand by overloading of this constructor is that if I declare a constructor with different data members or the parameters that are passing through the constructor function, okay, the same constructor function can be defined with different types of parameters. Okay, it may have a single parameter or it may come with the multiple parameter. If it comes with the same constructor comes with multiple parameters, we call the functionality as a constructor overloading. So let us take the example. Here a class box is defined with the data members length, breadth and height. The default constructor is declared with the parameters length is equal to breadth is equal to height is equal to 0. Second, it has declared with the parameter integer side. Okay. Again, the three parameters length is equal to breadth is equal to height is equal to side is declared as a side. The third constructor with the same name, the three parameters that are passed here are integer length, b, and height, which are assigned to length, breadth, and height. Okay, and finally we are interested in calculating the volume. So we are return a data member, that is volume, which is going to return the multiplication or the product of these three parameters for individual constructor class. So again, during the execution of this code, the compiler will check the class box with data members length, breadth, and height. So it is going to have a default memory layout to store these variables. So length, breadth, and height, all of them are integer. So 4 bytes of memory to store these data members, all of them are private. After that, it will execute the main. So in the first line, it checks the box with b1. So the first object instance is created b1 with certain memory. Okay, no content available, it is totally blank. So once the object is created, the compiler is going to execute the default constructor. So it is going to check for the default constructor box. Okay, so since three constructors are given there, whichever is declared first will be known as the default constructor. Okay, a question that you can ask. So you are going to execute this default constructor in which now the length, breadth, and height equal to 0. So we are going to get the value of L is equal to B is equal to H is equal to 0 for this object B1. Then it will execute the second line in which the value of B2 is passed with the parameter 5. So it is going to run this parameter and side will be replaced with 5. So it will again create a memory layout B2. I am going to use the default layout now. So it is going to replace this value side, correct, side with the parameter length, breadth, and height. Okay, and it will assign the value side to all these parameter. So it is going to become 5, 5, and 5 for B2. Similarly for the B3, it is going to become 2, 3, and 4. So you are going to get L will become 3, L will become 2, B will become 3, and H will become 4. So first object B1 with length, breadth, and height equal to 0. Second object B2, separate memory for that, in which the length is equal to 5, breadth is equal to 5, and height is equal to 5. The third parameter for which the third object for which you are going to have the length is equal to 2, the breadth is equal to 3, and the height is equal to 4. After that, when I write cout volumes, b1 dot volume will print the will execute this function volume, which is a product of LBH. So it will print 0. For b2 it is going to print 5 into 5 into 5. Okay, after that for b3 it is going to print 2 into 3 into 4 for the cuboid. So once we understand why the constructor is created, sometimes it also becomes important to delete the values that are used for storing the data members in the memory to be deleted by writing a function which is known as a destructor. So what destructor does is that whatever parameters are used in order to store the values of parameters that are declared by the constructor, to free up the memory, you can use a destructor. In order to use the destructor, the condition remains same. It should have the same name as that of the class, just like the constructor. The only thing is that it will come with a symbol that is tilde. Okay, so if I write tilde my class, so it will be considered as a destructor. So whatever memory is allocated for the constructor, you can free it by using the destructor. Okay, so here an example of destructor. My class private data member that is declared data itself, a default constructor with a parameter integer size. So data will be allocated to this particular member. It will print in the output constructor memory allocated, and then with a tilde symbol, my class delete. So you need to use this keyword delete. Okay, and the data member which was in which or which was used to store the data in the memory, you need to give the name of that data member. So delete has to be used. It is a resort keyword, and the member or the data member which is allocated memory by the constructor. So once you execute it, whatever memory is allocated for this data member, it will be automatically deleted. So here is a good example of constructor and destructor. Okay, so here a class student, okay, consisting of the private data member, marks, name and count. Okay, so we are counting the total marks. A default constructor with the parameter string n which is assigned to name. We are also having the marks declared as integer 5, and whatever count comes it will be incremented by 1. So cout student name created and total. Okay, so I'm counting the marks of student. So a copy constructor in order to keep the original copy of the mark. Okay, always good idea to keep the second or the original copy of the mark, and destructor to delete the values or the memory in which the marks are stored temporarily, and the count will become minus minus. So again, in order to execute this code, we have written integer student for the class by using the two colons, count equal to 0. Generally this writing two types of colon is known as scope resolution operator, which is used to resolve the scope of the class. So count is the variable that belongs to the class, and it is initialized to 0. So integer main cout and student s1 is equal to Alice. So first object will be created for with the name S1 with the name of the student Alice. So here the name of the student will become Alice, and the marks we are going to take some random value up to 5. Okay, and second student Bob, and a copy of the Alice into another object that is S3. Okay, so after execution of this code, after the execution before the return 0, the destructor will be executed automatically. It will delete the marks and the name of the student to which the marks are assigned in order to free the memory space. So till here any difficulty out of curiosity? Okay, next we are going to check the friend function. So far what we have learned that the private data member and the member function, or the protected data member and the member function, they cannot be accessed outside the class. Okay, once they are declared private or protected, their definition remains within the class. However, C++ comes with extra function that is known as a friend function, which is a non-member function of that particular class. However, once this function is declared as a friend, it can access the private and the protected members directly. Okay, so it is a special member function. Once it is declared as a friend, it can access the private members, okay, inside the class, private data members or private member functions inside the class. Declaration of this friend function can be done by the within the class itself. You have to declare that the particular data member is a friend. However, its definition will be called outside the class. So class name, and you have to use the keyword friend in order to declare that the particular functions with certain parameter is a friend function of this class, and whatever member function or the data members are declared inside the class now can be accessed outside the class. Okay, let us take a example of the friend function. So I am having the function a class rectangle declared with the private members length and width. Publicly I am declaring a function rectangle with the two parameters length and width L and W, which are assigned to the variables length and width, okay, which are the private data member which are declared inside the class. So earlier we used to declare it like this: rectangle, integer length, integer W, and then L is assigned to length and W is assigned to width. But now instead of this declaration, we are declaring it in a single line with no function definition. Okay, so what I have done now, I have declared the function rectangle with two parameters L and W, which are assigned to the data members which are declared private as length and width, with no values given inside the member function. Okay, so this part we are not using now. I can declare the same thing in a single line. Okay, after that I am declaring a function calculate area as a friend function, and I am using the name of the class and a variable r, which will be the which will copy the instance of the object. Okay, which will copy the current instance of the object by using call by value. Okay, it is going to copy the current instance of the object by using call by call by reference. So once it is declared as a friend, now the function definition can be written outside the class. Here the class definition ends. So integer calculate area rectangle r, it will return r dot length into r dot width to the calling function calculate area. Okay, so what it is going to do, again the main function is written. So during the execution, what will happen? First thing, the compiler is going to create the memory layout. So in the memory layout, it is going to assign the length and width with 4 bytes. Four bytes each as in the default memory layout. Okay. Second thing, the compiler notes out that there is a friend function declaration inside the class. There is also a default constructor with the parameter L and W, which are assigned to the private data member length and width. Okay, once the memory layout and the compiler understand that there is a default constructor and there is a friend function declaration, it comes to know that the definition of the friend function will be written somewhere outside the class. There can be multiple friend functions also. So here, after the compiler phase is over, it is going to run the phase number 2, that is the execution of the main. In the execution of the main, it will check that there is a class rectangle with the object rect, okay, with the object rectangle with two parameters 5 and 3. So automatically it will allocate certain memory for this object rect, okay, and it will run the default constructor. So it is going to jump from here to here. Okay, it sees that there is a default constructor with two parameters L and W. So L will be assigned with 5, W will be assigned with 3, and finally, as per the definition of the member function, length is going to become 5. Okay, so I am going to get for this object length becomes 5 and width becomes 3. Okay, so now we are having the object with two parameters, length is equal to 5 and width is equal to 3. So after that, it is going to execute the next line, that is line number 26, cout area. So in console it will display area, and then it will check there is a function, that is friend function calculate area. So it will look for this friend function calculate area and it is going to jump here. Okay, so the definition of this member function, it is consisting of parameter rectangle and the variable r. Okay, so what it is going to do, it is going to create a variable r. Okay, and it is a known as pass by value parameter r. So what it is going to do, it is going to create exact replica of this object rectangle by passing the value r. So it is a local variable inside calculate area function, you need to understand, and it is copy of the rectangle object passed by using pass by value. Okay, and it is automatically going to copy the object rectangle to this variable r. So here length is going to become 5, okay, and width is going to become 5. So finally it is going to return the value r dot length, so 5 multiplied by 3, 15, and it is going to return it to the calling function, so the area becomes 15. Finally return 0 is executed and whatever memory is allocated for this particular variables, it will be freed after the execution of the code. So what we learn from this particular friend function is that whatever earlier we have understood that whatever is declared in the private and protected, once they are declared, we don't have access of these data members directly. So indirectly we have to get the value or pass the value by calling the member functions that are declared within the class, but no way we can call them outside the class. We don't have access to these data members or the member functions directly outside the class. So if I want to pass the value to these data members, I have to declare a function as a friend, which will be the friend to that particular class, and the definition of the friend function can be declared outside the class. So what exactly we do in the friend function is that we create the variable, okay, uh, with a parameter belonging to the class, which will be passing the value, or we call it as a passed by value. Whatever object or the current instance of the object of the class is created, whatever variables are available in that, it will pass those values to the temporary variable that is declared inside the friend function and create a copy of it. Once it is done, it is going to execute the definition of the member function, and finally it is going to print the value. So what exactly the friend function do? It allows the non-member function to access the private member, as we have seen in this example. Most important thing, it breaks the encapsulation in the controlled way. So since we don't have access to the data member and the member function outside the class, we call it as a encapsulation. Now with this, it is also possible to access the data member and member functions outside the class by declaring a friend function, which is having the privileges by which it can have the access to the member functions and the data members in the class, which are declared as a private. So there are multiple examples that you can check. So there is another concept which is known as friend class. Okay. So far we have learned that the member functions can be a friend function. However, in C++ we can also have a class which can be declared as a friend class. Okay. So by declaring the class as a friend class, so all the member function will have the access to the private and the protected member of another class. So if I declare any class as a friend class, that class A is a friend class of B, it means that whatever private and protected members or the private members that are present in the class A are now accessible in class B. So here is an syntax that is written to have the friend class declaration. So you are having class A, second the class B as a friend of class A. So you have to write the keyword friend class, okay, and then class B. So once I declare and use the keyword friend, it means that now you are having class B as a friend. So whatever private members are there in the class A, now I can access these members in the class B. So after that, the definition of class B, and I can call whatever private members are there inside the class B. Let us take one example if it is available. So it is available here. So I have not written the hash include stdio.h. You have to consider it is written. Okay, so there is a class that is declared as employee consisting of private data members, string, name and salary. Then the default constructor consisting of parameters and s. These are assigned to name and salary, which are the private data members declared here. After that, I am declaring that there is a friend class payroll system. Okay, and this payroll system definition is written outside. So class payroll system consisting of data member display salary function consisting of the parameter employee with a variable e. It will be equivalent to pass by value. Then I am printing something at the console, that is employee and salary e dot name and e dot salary. Again a member function apply bonus. So here I am using call by reference. The pointer is the address pointer is used, and to reference the variable where the value for this data members are stored. Okay, and then I am incrementing it. So this is the example in which the first part in which we collect the name and salary of that particular employee. In the second class, we print the salary, and if bonus is applicable, we add that bonus to that current employee. A simple problem, scenario based. Then we have written a main here, okay, consisting of the class name and the object and the various lines. So when this particular program is executed, we are going to have the first phase in which the compiler checks there are two classes declared. It creates a default layout for storing this data members name and salary. Okay, and after that it checks there is a declaration of a friend class. The class is consisting of two member functions. After that it executes in the phase 2 main. It checks for the class name employee and the object emp. So it creates the object emp employee, and then the two parameters that are available, John and 50,000, it automatically executes the default constructor. So it will execute the default constructor employee, and it will pass the value John to n and 50,000 to s. After that the n will be assigned to name and 50,000 to salary. So now the employee object is having the two data member, name is equal to John and salary is equal to 50,000. Okay, after that it will execute the second line, that is payroll system. So payroll system is the new class name. So it will check for this payroll system class name. Okay, and it will create an object with the name payroll. So payroll will be the new object, but no variables are declared for it. So it will have the temporary memory allocation, and after that automatically it is going to execute the default constructor for this particular class. So the default constructor here is not available, so it will remain as it is. After that it is going to execute display salary. Okay, so payroll dot display salary, so it will tag with the member function display salary. So from here it will jump to this member function display salary, where it sees that it is belongs to the class employee. Okay, and for which it creates a object e. Okay, a temporary variable e, and after that this e is tagged with name. So first thing it will copy the content of the object that is populated in the previous state, that is the object employee, consisting of name and consisting of salary. So the content inside the E will become now name is equal to John and salary is equal to 50,000. Okay, and after that it will run the next line, apply bonus. So again it will jump to this apply bonus. It will check employee and E. So it is a call by reference. So whatever content is available in the E, now the employee name John and the bonus is equal to salary is equal to 50,000 and one more variable, that is bonus. So salary E dot salary is 50,000 equal to plus bonus. The value of bonus is provided here 5,000. So now the value of E will become John and 50,000 plus 5,000 will become 55,000, and finally I am going to declare the salary for this employee. After that return 0. Okay, so after that we'll start a concept which is known as function overloading. So in the C++, it is practically possible to use the same function in order to perform different tasks by changing the total number of parameters that are declared in the function, or by changing the types of parameter, or otherwise by changing the order of the parameter. Okay, if I do it so in a single class or a single program, the characteristics is known as function overloading. Same function that can be used to perform different tasks. It will be consisting of different number of parameters or different types of parameters or different order of the parameter. Let us take one good example. So in this example we can see that there is a class calculator, okay, consisting of the member function add, consisting of two parameters, integer a and integer b. So it comes with two parameter a and b, and it returns the addition of this two parameter. Okay, similarly the same function is used again, integer add, but now with three parameters. It returns the value of addition of this three parameter. Overloading by type, so I have declared float add, float a and float b. So I have declared them as float, so the type of the parameter is declared is different. Overload by order, so in this case string is the first parameter and integer becomes the second parameter. So two different types of parameter passed within the function. The type of the function is string. Okay, in this case it is known as overload by order. Same example, overload by order, in which the number comes first and the strings comes later. Integer main calculate calculator calc. So when this program is executed, first the memory layout is created in which the compiler checks for the different types of variables that are declared. For each variable it allocates a temporary memory. It runs the main. After that then it checks the name of the class and the object, that is calc. Okay, so it counts calc dot add 5.10. The order in which it is executed is the first function is executed first, okay, which is declared as per the order. So here it will jump from here to here, okay, as a default function that is provided. Okay, so I forget to add that when the object is created, default constructor is executed with some values. Since no parameters are passed in the default constructor, in that case it allocates a temporary memory for the object, okay, with no parameters inside it. After that it will execute this line in which the function add consisting of two parameters 5 and 10. So 5 will be allocated to A and 10 will be allocated to B. It will return the value 5 plus 10 is equal to 15. Second, same function with three parameters 5, 10 and 15. So it will allocate A is equal to 5, B is equal to 10 and C is equal to 15, and it will return the value addition of these three parameters. Second, overload by type. So calc add dot 5.5 f for float and 3.3 f for float. So it will perform addition of two float numbers and print the value. Call by overload by value, okay, order, my mistake. So overload by order, so calc add, so value comes first and the number comes later, that is given here. Okay, so here string is first and the number is later, so value will come first and 100 will be printed later. Similarly, for this case we are going to get the number will be printed first and the value will come later. If I am doing it so, it is known as the function overloading. Similarly, we can overload the operator. This part I will give you as a part of homework. In case if you have any difficulty, you can ask me that time. Okay. Next, we'll cover up the small portion from the unit number 3, which is known as inheritance. Okay, which is the part of your syllabus for the jury assessment 1. So it belongs to unit number 3. Unit number 3, you are having a topic which is known as inheritance. As the name suggests, uh, uh, inheritance name is derived from the biological property in which some of the property of the parent is derived in the child or in the child class in our case. So what are these properties? This can be the member function or the data member that are declared within the class. Okay, so let us take the basic definition. What is inheritance? It is the mechanism by which one class is derived from another class, and this derived class can inherit the properties or whatever data members and the member functions that are declared in the original class, which is known as the base class. It can call it there inside the derived class, as well as it can add its own data member and the member function. It is just like what we say father and child. The child will have the property all that of the father or few property whatever he wants to take, as well as some of the characteristics or the properties it can add its own. So that thing is known as the inheritance. It is having the key benefit that I can have the standard class. If it is developed, I can reuse it by calling it in another class and add more feature in the derived class. This functionality is known as the code reusability. Second, you can modify more features added to the existing code. It can also support polymorphism where it treats the object of the derived class as the base class object. Okay, we'll learn it in the next section. And it also creates the proper hierarchy in the code, that class A, class B, which is the base class, which is the derived class. Okay, the C++ supports 5 types of inheritances. Okay, depending on how the classes are derived from the base class, whether there is a single class which is derived from the base class, multiple classes derived from the base class, two base classes, single derived class, or one class derived from another class derived from the second class. In that case, we call it as a hierarchical inheritance. So it supports five types of inheritance. Okay. So based on the classes, we call them as single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multiple multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and hybrid inheritance. Okay. So let us take a first example that is related to your syllabus. Here, first type, that is your single level inheritance. So I am having a class vehicle with two data members, brand and speed, and the member function vehicle, another member function start. Then there is a derived class car from the base class vehicle. So I need to provide which part of the vehicle I need to access. So public part of the vehicle I need to access. So again, it is also having its own data member, integer doors, and the member functions car. Okay. Again, the data members are initialized with the default constructor. That is, the brand is Toyota, speed is 100, and doors are 4. Then its own member function, and then the main function. Okay. So let us understand how this code is executed. So when the phase 1 occurs, the compiler checks for the two classes definition, that there are two classes defined in the program. One is the base class vehicle, and second is the derived class from the base class vehicle. We call it as a derived class. Okay, which can have the access of the public part of the class. After that, it sees that there are data members that are declared for each class. So it creates the default memory layout for this class vehicle. It is having the string as brand, so uninitialized data type, so no memory space is written for it. Second, speed, so 4 bytes integer value allocated for it. Then we are having the second class car, okay, consisting of doers, okay, as a data member, 4 bytes allocated to it. After that, it will jump to the main. So in the main, it checks that first thing, the name of the class and the object for that class is written. So name of the class is car, and it will create the object my car. It will allocate immediately temporary memory for this object car. Okay. Once it is done, it is going to execute the default constructor. Since there are two classes declared here, it is going to execute simultaneously both the constructors. Constructor that is written for vehicle and constructor that is written for the class car. So here the default constructor with the class name is vehicle. So it is going to assign the temporary value for this my car object with the default constructor brand is equal to unknown, correct, and speed is equal to 0. Okay. After that, it is going to simultaneously run the second constructor, that the car. So it will replace now the value that is available for this particular object brand. It will assign the value brand is equal to Toyota. Okay. Brand is equal to Toyota, speed is equal to 100, and it will add extra feature in this object, that is doors is equal to 5. So now this my car object that has been created for this single inheritance is populated with features that are taken from the base class. Earlier it was unknown and speed is equal to 0 with the default constructor, but when the second constructor is executed, in that case it replaces it with the value Toyota, speed and extra feature 4 in the mycar object. Now when I call the show information, it will print the value brand is equal to Toyota, speed is equal to 100 and doors is equal to 4. Okay, so this much is the syllabus for your what we say examination. The part that I have missed is the operator overloading. I keep it up to you to do it yourself. However, in the meantime, if you are having any difficulties, you can post it on the Google Classroom. I will share this complete video within 10 to 15 minutes. Okay. Till here, any difficulty or doubts? Anybody from you? Okay, we'll stop here. All the best.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Excuse me, I had a doubt. What exactly is the pattern for the midsem jury?
The pattern is very simple. On each unit, there will be a integrated question that will be asked. Okay, so for example, unit number 1 is based on your, if you check unit number 1 that we have studied in the class, it is based on the fundamentals. Okay, basic of C++, the declaration of class. We have also learned arrays within the class, creation of object like that. So you will be given some questions in which you will be having a creation of class with some data members and the member function. Depending on the question, they may provide you that this data member should be private and this member function should be private or public. Correct? That is question for 4 marks. Later, they may ask the question on unit number 2 like friend function that we have learned, or constructor, destructor. Okay, operator overloading, I keep it with you now. Correct, friend class like that. So in the question they may give like you have to write a friend function and show that the member functions or the data member can be accessed outside the class. So 4 marks for that. And last one, since everybody had taken only the single inheritance, they may ask the question to derive the derived class from the base class that is written for the question number 1. Okay, and access the member function or the data members inside the base class. The example that I have taken now, 4 marks for that. So whatever program you write, 50% marks for that return and execution, and 50% marks will be based on the logic that you need to explain in the examination. If you understood it, you can explain it properly. I hope this solved your query. Yes, anybody else who is having any question? Okay, we'll stop here. Thank you. All the best.